On my 18th birthday, I received a package that would forever change how I understood love, loss, and the unbreakable bonds between a father and daughter. The morning started like any other birthday. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom curtains, casting dancing shadows across the walls of my childhood room. I could hear my mother bustling around downstairs, preparing what I knew would be an elaborate celebration. The smell of vanilla cake and fresh coffee drifted up the stairs, mingling with the crisp October air that slipped through my slightly open window. But there was something different about this day, something I could not quite name, a heaviness in the air, a whisper of anticipation that made my heart beat just a little faster than usual. I was brushing my hair when the doorbell rang. Sharp, urgent, like whoever was outside had something important to deliver and could not wait another moment. Package for Elena Martinez. I heard the delivery man call out. My mother's voice drifted up from below. Elena, there is something here for you. I rushed downstairs, my bare feet padding against the cold hardwood floors. In my mother's hands was a small rectangular package, no bigger than a shoebox. It was wrapped in plain brown paper, tied with simple twine, the kind of packaging that suggested someone had wrapped it by hand, with care, taking time to fold each corner perfectly. But what made my breath catch in my throat was what I did not see. No return address, no shipping label from any major company, just my name written in black ink across the front in handwriting that made my knees go weak. I knew the handwriting. I had seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and little notes tucked into my lunchbox. I had seen it on the last letter my father ever wrote to me before the cancer took him away, when I was just 10 years old. Mom, I whispered, my voice barely audible. This is from Dad. My mother's face went pale. She stared at the package as if it were something supernatural, something that defied every law of nature she understood. Her hands trembled as she handed it to me. That is impossible, Elena, she said, but her voice carried no conviction. Deep down, we both knew there were things in this world that could not be easily explained. I held the package close to my chest, feeling its weight. It was heavier than it looked, as if it contained more than just physical objects. It felt like it held memories, emotions, and secrets that had been waiting 8 long years to be revealed. Taped to the top was a small piece of paper, folded twice. I recognized the stationery. It was from the pad my father used to keep on his desk in his home office. With shaking fingers, I unfolded the note. The words were written in his familiar handwriting, slightly slanted to the right, with the distinctive way he crossed his T's and dotted his I's. Open this when you are truly alone and completely silent. Love always and forever, Dad. I could not breathe. My mother was crying now, soft tears rolling down her cheeks as she stared at the note. We both knew this was real. Somehow, impossibly, my father had arranged for this package to reach me on my 18th birthday. How is this possible? My mother asked, her voice breaking. I shook my head. I did not have answers. All I knew was that my father, even in death, had found a way to be present for one of the most important days of my life. The rest of the day passed in a blur of celebration and anticipation. Friends arrived for my birthday party, bringing gifts wrapped in bright paper and tied with elaborate bows. We laughed, took photos, and ate cake until our stomachs hurt. Everyone commented on how beautiful the decorations were, how delicious the food was, how much fun they were having. But through it all, I clutched that brown paper package like a lifeline. I carried it with me everywhere, to school for my half-day of classes, through the cake-cutting ceremony, even while my friends posed for endless selfies and uploaded them to social media with hashtags about turning 18 and feeling free. None of them understood the weight of what I was carrying. How could they? They still had their fathers. They still had the luxury of assuming their parents would be there for every milestone, every achievement, every moment when they needed guidance or comfort. I did not have that luxury. I had not had it for 8 years. But maybe, just maybe, I had something else. Something more precious than I could have ever imagined. As the evening wore on and my friends began to leave, the anticipation became almost unbearable. I found myself checking the clock every few minutes, willing time to move faster so I could finally be alone with whatever my father had left for me. "Are you going to open it tonight?" my mother asked as we cleaned up the remnants of the party. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I need to." She nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "Whatever it is, I know it comes from a place of love." Finally, at 11:47 p.m., the house fell completely silent. My mother had gone to bed, exhausted from the day's festivities. The neighborhood had settled into the peaceful quiet that only comes late at night, when the world seems to pause and take a breath. I sat cross-legged on my bed, still wearing my birthday dress, but having kicked off the uncomfortable heels hours ago. The package sat in front of me, looking smaller now in the lamplight, but somehow more significant than it had all day. I turned off my phone completely, not just silent mode, completely off. I wanted no interruptions, no notifications, no connection to the outside world. This moment belonged to me and my father, and no one else. The brown paper crinkled as I carefully removed it, trying not to tear anything that might have been touched by his hands. Underneath was a wooden box, about the size of a jewelry case, but deeper. It was made of dark cherry wood, polished to a shine, with intricate carvings along the sides that depicted vines and flowers intertwining in beautiful patterns. Tied to a small brass clasp with a red ribbon was a tiny key, no bigger than my thumbnail. Another note was folded and tucked under the ribbon. This one was shorter, written on a small piece of cream-colored paper. "Take a deep breath, my beautiful daughter. No noise, no distractions. Just you, me, and 8 years of love that has been waiting to find you. Some truths only visit us in silence." That last line made me gasp out loud. Some truths only visit us in silence. That was something my father used to say when I was little. Whenever I was upset or overwhelmed, he would take me to his office, close the door, and we would sit together in complete quiet until I felt ready to talk. He always said that silence was not empty. It was full of possibilities, full of understanding, full of love that did not need words to exist. I had forgotten he used to say that. The memory hit me like a physical force, bringing with it the smell of his cologne, the sound of his laugh, the feeling of safety I had when I was curled up in his lap while he worked at his desk. With trembling fingers, I untied the ribbon and picked up the small brass key. It was warm in my palm, as if it had been waiting years for this moment. I inserted it into the lock and turned it slowly. The lid opened with a soft creak, revealing the interior lined with deep blue velvet. And there, nestled in the center like a precious gemstone, was an old-fashioned voice recorder. It was small and silver, with a simple design that suggested it was from another era. A tiny red light blinked slowly on its surface, indicating that it was already powered on and ready. Next to the recorder was a folded piece of paper. This note was longer than the others, written on multiple sheets in my father's careful handwriting. "My dearest Elena, if you are reading this, it means you have reached your 18th birthday, and I am not there to celebrate with you. I cannot express how much this breaks my heart, even as I write these words while you sleep peacefully in the next room, 8 years old and blissfully unaware of what is coming. I have been planning this gift for months, ever since the doctors told me that the treatments were no longer working. I knew I would not be there to see you graduate, to meet your first boyfriend, to help you choose a college, or to walk you down the aisle someday. But I realized that while I could not be there physically, I could leave pieces of myself behind. This recorder contains something I hope will be more valuable than any material gift I could give you. It contains my voice, my thoughts, my hopes and dreams for the woman I believe you will become. I recorded it during my last weeks, when I was still strong enough to speak clearly, but weak enough to know that time was running out. I have arranged for this to be delivered to you on your 18th birthday through a lawyer I trust completely. He has instructions to ensure this reaches you no matter where life has taken you by then. Listen to this when you are alone, when the world is quiet, when you can give me your complete attention. Not because what I have to say is secret, but because I want you to really hear me. Not just my words, but my love, my pride, my absolute certainty that You are going to do amazing things with your life. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, more than all the grains of sand on all the beaches, more than you will ever fully understand until you have children of your own someday. Forever your father, Dad. Tears were streaming down my face by the time I finished reading. I could barely see the words through the blur of emotion, but I could feel every single one of them sinking into my heart like seeds that would grow into something beautiful. I set the letter aside and picked up the voice recorder. It was heavier than I expected, solid and substantial. The red light continued to blink patiently, waiting for me to find the courage to press play. I took the deep breath my father had requested in his note. I closed my eyes and tried to center myself, to create the kind of silence he had always said was necessary for important truths. And then, with my heart pounding so hard I was sure it would drown out whatever was on that recording, I pressed the play button. The first sound was static, soft and gentle, like radio waves searching for a signal across vast distances. Then, clear as if he were sitting right next to me, came my father's voice. It was exactly as I remembered it, warm and deep, with the slight rasp that came from years of smoking cigarettes in college, before he quit when my mother became pregnant with me. There was a smile in his voice, the same smile I could picture on his face even with my eyes closed. Hello, my beautiful Elena. If you are hearing this, it means you are 18 years old, and I am not there to tell you in person how incredibly proud I am of the woman you have become. I had to pause the recording. The sound of his voice was overwhelming, like being embraced by someone who had been gone for so long that I had started to forget what their hugs felt like. But here he was, speaking to me across 8 years of silence, his love reaching through time itself to find me. I pressed play again. I do not know who you are today. I do not know if you are tall or short, if you still have my dark hair, or if you have grown into your mother's beautiful blonde curls. I do not know if you are planning to go to college, or if you want to travel the world, or if you have already discovered the passion that will drive your entire life. He paused, and I could hear him take a breath. But I know who you were when I left you, and that little girl was the most remarkable person I had ever met. You were curious about everything. You asked a million questions a day. You could not walk past a flower without stopping to smell it, or see a stray cat without wanting to bring it home. You had your mother's compassion, and what I like to think was my stubborn determination to make the world a better place. I was sobbing now, remembering exactly the little girl he was describing. I had forgotten how much I used to love exploring, how excited I would get about the smallest discoveries. Somewhere in the years after he died, I had become more careful, more reserved. I had learned to protect myself from disappointment by not hoping for too much. I hope the world has not made you too quiet, Elena. I hope you have not learned to make yourself smaller, to fit into spaces that were not designed for your magnificence. But I also hope you have not become too loud, too angry at life for what it took away from you. Balance has always been your greatest strength, even as a child. The recording continued for over an hour. My father talked about his own childhood, sharing stories I had never heard before about his relationship with his parents, his dreams when he was my age, the mistakes he made, and the lessons he learned from them. He talked about meeting my mother, about how he knew on their first date that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He described the day I was born in vivid detail, how he cried when he first held me, how he stood by my crib for hours, just watching me sleep, how he promised me that night that he would do everything in his power to give me a beautiful life. I know I broke that promise, he said, his voice growing softer. I know that by dying when you were so young, I left you to navigate some of the hardest parts of growing up without a father's guidance. I know there were probably nights when you needed me, and I was not there. Days when you achieved something wonderful, and I was not there to celebrate with you. Moments when you felt scared or confused, and I was not there to help you find your way. He was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear the weight of his regret in that silence. But I need you to understand something, Elena. Just because I am not physically present does not mean I am not with you. Love does not die when the body does. Love transcends death, transcends time, transcends every boundary that humans think exists between the living and the dead. Every time you have felt a sudden surge of confidence when you needed it most, that was me cheering you on. Every time you have made a decision that felt scary but right, that was me whispering in your ear to be brave. Every time you have shown kindness to someone who needed it, that was my values living on through your actions. The recording shifted then, becoming more specific, more personal. I want to tell you some things that I should have said more often while I was alive. I want you to know that you are not responsible for other people's happiness. You are not required to make yourself smaller so that others feel bigger. You do not owe anyone your compliance, your silence, or your dimmed light. You are brilliant, Elena. Not just smart, brilliant. You see connections that other people miss. You understand things that take others years to figure out. Do not let anyone convince you to doubt your intelligence or to apologize for knowing what you know. You are also beautiful, but not in the way the world might try to define beauty for you. You are beautiful because of how you treat people who can do nothing for you. You are beautiful because of how you defend those who cannot defend themselves. You are beautiful because of the way you love completely, without reservation, even after you have been hurt. And you will be hurt, my darling. That is part of being human. People will disappoint you. They will break promises, betray trust, and sometimes they will leave you when you need them most. But do not let those experiences teach you to love less. The world needs your open heart. The world needs your capacity for joy, for wonder, for seeing the best in people even when they do not see it in themselves. As the recording went on, my father shared advice about relationships, about choosing friends who celebrated my successes instead of diminishing them. He talked about money, about work, about the importance of finding something that made me excited to wake up in the morning. But mostly, he talked about love, about how love was not just a feeling but a choice, something that required daily commitment and intentional action, about how the love between us would never fade or diminish, no matter how many years passed or how much distance existed between us. I have loved you every single day since you were born, he said near the end of the recording. I loved you on the good days, when you made me laugh until my stomach hurt. I loved you on the difficult days, when you tested every boundary and challenged every rule. I loved you when you were sweet and cooperative, and I loved you when you were stubborn and defiant. I love you right now, as you listen to this, even though I cannot see your face or hold your hand. I love the child you were, the teenager you became, and the woman you are growing into. I love your past, your present, and your future. My love for you is not conditional on anything you do or do not do. It simply is, like gravity or the sunrise, or the way flowers know to bloom in spring. The recording was winding down now, and I could hear the exhaustion in my father's voice. This had clearly been recorded during his final weeks, when speaking for long periods would have been difficult. I need you to do something for me, Elena. I need you to live fully. Not recklessly, but fully. I need you to take chances on love, even when it feels scary. I need you to pursue dreams that seem impossible. I need you to travel, to explore, to never stop asking questions about how the world works. I need you to be kind, but not at the expense of your own well-being. I need you to be strong, but not so strong that you forget to ask for help when you need it. I need you to remember that being vulnerable is not weakness. It is the birthplace of courage, creativity, and connection. Most importantly, I need you to be happy. Not happy all the time. That is not realistic or healthy, but happy in the deep way that comes from knowing who you are and living in alignment with your values. Happy in a way that comes from surrounding yourself with people who see and appreciate your true self. Happy in the way that comes from making a difference in the world, even if it is a small difference. There was a long pause, and when my father spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I wish I could be there to see all of this unfold. I wish I could meet your friends, your partners, your children if you choose to have them. I wish I could be there to offer advice when you need it, to celebrate your victories, to comfort you during your defeats. But even though I cannot be there physically, I am there in every lesson I taught you, every value I instilled in you, every moment of love we shared during the 10 years we had together. I am there in your laugh, which sounds exactly like mine. I am there in your stubbornness, which you definitely inherited from me. I am there in your compassion, which is all your own, but which I tried my best to nurture. The recording was almost over now. I could tell by the way my father's voice had changed, becoming softer and more reflective. This box is not magic, Elena, but silence is. Silence holds what we miss when the world is too noisy to hear our own hearts. That is why I asked you to listen to this alone, in stillness. I wanted you to really hear me, not just my voice, but my love, my pride, my absolute faith in your ability to create a beautiful life. I want you to keep this recorder. On days when you miss me, when you need to remember how much you are loved, I want you to find a quiet place and listen to my voice again. Not because you should live in the past, but because you should never forget that you are carrying the love of everyone who has ever loved you, including me. You are not alone, my beautiful daughter. You have never been alone. You will never be alone. Love is the one thing that death cannot touch, cannot diminish, cannot steal away. There was one final pause, longer than the others. Happy 18th birthday, Elena. I am so proud of who you are becoming. I love you more than words could ever express. Until we see each other again, live well, live fully, live with joy. The recording ended with a soft click, followed by silence that felt completely different from any silence I had ever experienced. It was not empty or lonely. It was full of love, full of connection, full of the presence of someone who would always be with me even when he was not physically there. I sat on my bed for a long time after the recording ended, holding the small silver device in my hands like it contained the most precious treasure in the world, which in many ways it did. My father had been gone for 8 years, but in that moment, he felt more present than he had since the day he died. Not because I was imagining him or pretending he was still alive, but because I finally understood what he had tried to tell me in that recording. Love does not end when life does. The people who love us leave pieces of themselves woven into the fabric of who we are. They live on in our choices, our values, our capacity to love others. They live on in the lessons they taught us, the examples they set, the ways they showed us how to move through the world with grace and intention. I realized that I had been carrying my father with me all along, in ways I had not fully recognized. Every time I stood up for someone who was being treated unfairly, that was his sense of justice living through me. Every time I chose kindness over cruelty, that was his compassion shining through my actions. Every time I refused to give up on something that mattered to me, that was his determination flowing through my veins. The gift was not just the recording, though that was precious beyond measure. The gift was the understanding that death had not separated us. It had simply changed the way we were connected. Instead of being connected through physical presence, we were connected through love, through memory, through the indelible mark he had left on my soul. As I finally prepared for bed that night, I felt different than I had when I woke up that morning. I felt less like an 18-year-old girl who had been abandoned by her father, and more like an 18-year-old woman who was carrying forward the love and wisdom of an extraordinary man. I placed the recorder carefully back in its velvet-lined box, along with the letters my father had written. I knew I would return to them many times over the years, on birthdays, on difficult days, on days when I needed to remember who I was and where I came from. But I also knew that I would not need to listen to them to feel my father's presence. He had given me something more valuable than the recording of his voice. He had given me the certainty that love transcends every boundary we think exists, that connection survives even death, and that the people who truly love us never really leave us at all. Some gifts do not shine or sparkle. They whisper, and in the quiet, they speak the loudest truths of all.